Welcome to the All People podcast, where we talk all people all the time. I'm your host, Elisa Southall. My goal is to improve candidate and employee experiences as well as company cultures throughout U.S. employers. We do this by leading with empathy, diversity, inclusion, equality, teamwork, and transparency. Come on this journey with me. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of All People podcast, where we talk all people all the time. I'm your host, Elisa Southall, and I am here today with Cierra Mitchell. Cierra Mitchell is the Division Director of the Office of Apprenticeship for the Department of Labor. I am so excited to talk with Cierra and have you all learn more about her and the apprenticeship program. Cierra, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell our guests or our listeners a little bit more about you and who you are and what you do.
Hi, Elisa. Hi, everyone. My name is Cierra Mitchell. As Elisa mentioned, I'm a division director in the Office of Apprenticeship. I oversee our industry engagement and strategic partnerships portfolio. So basically what that means is that I have the pleasure of working with stakeholders across the country, be it employers, industry associations, labor unions, state educators, community-based organizations, to help them meet their workforce needs, whether it be recruitment, training, or retention needs through registered apprenticeship. We have staff I work at the headquarters office and in Washington, D.C. for the Department of Labor, but we have staff located across the country at the national, regional, state, and local level who are really paid to help others, employers, job seekers, to really match those career seekers to employers to help career seekers find rewarding careers and kind of get a jump start on their career paths through apprenticeship, and to help employers create registered apprenticeship programs, which are training programs to help build a skilled workforce. So that's, in a nutshell, what I do.
Awesome. Well, I want to drop some statistics for everybody because I went on the apprenticeship.gov website, and if you go on that, it has a did you know feature, right? And so not only does it say that there's 800,000 apprentices nationally across the US, but it says the average starting salary after an apprentice completes an apprenticeship program is $77,000 a year. Also that there's a 93% employment retention rate and $300,000 lifetime earning advantage. So, I mean, with those statistics, I don't know why we are not having more of these programs. So tell us a little bit more about that, about those things that you talk about on your website.
Thank you so much for pointing that out. And I have to say, that was one of the main reasons that I joined the Department of Labor's Office of Apprenticeship, because I wasn't aware of it. And when I found out about it, I thought, where has this been all my life? Why didn't I know it more? And how can I help really evangelize and spread the word? And that's basically what I do every day. And so I am happy to say that the interest and demand for registered apprenticeship is growing. So while we still have work to do, it's grown 70% over the past decade, which is exciting. So those numbers are really because of the proven retention rates that you mentioned, the 93% retention rates, and just really the proven success record. And so we are seeing a 44.5 return on investment from employers. And so what we've been doing is really reaching out to employers and our stakeholders, educational systems, workforce boards, states, governors, labor unions. And we did an ask a year ago and said, do any of you want to help us really spread the word? It's one thing for Cierra Mitchell from the Department of Labor to say registered apprenticeship is great, you should try it. But it's another thing when you get employers on board to be those champions. And so we launched an apprenticeship ambassador initiative and basically welcomed employers and others to join us to really serve as champions for registered apprenticeship. And we received hundreds of responses. So now we have employers of all sizes, small, medium, and large, from Google and IBM and Microsoft and Amazon and CBS and others, who are really serving as champions and leaders to really help employers know that registered apprenticeship not only works, but it can work in multiple industries. I think some people think of apprenticeship as specifically in the construction trade, but it is definitely, we've seen an expansion across multiple industries, especially over the past 5 years, from cybersecurity, clean energy, and advanced manufacturing to healthcare, hospitality, and many more.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I am somebody, when I was working in HR, I actually deployed a registered apprenticeship program locally at my organization. And then I championed and led an initiative for us to nationally, roll this out. And one of the things that people may not know, so when you have a registered apprenticeship program, every state in the US gets funding to do these registered apprenticeship programs. And then the other pieces are they get to build the curriculum with their local community colleges to what they want it to be. They get to build the program for what they want it to be. And they can have a cohort that is not only, like you were talking about one particular skill set, right? If it's an assembler, maybe they also have a sales and a customer service and, an HR, right? They can have all these different cohort, individuals within a cohort that are in different professions. And so I think that that's really important, but you can have multiple cohorts running as well. And so I think that, from the terms of the registered apprenticeship program, I think that that's key is really using it to accelerate your workforce and build your pipeline of talent.
Exactly. Our staff not only work with employers and others to build that curriculum, either using the current training models that they have or looking at gaps in areas that they might need more assistance, helping to connect them to partners in the area, whether it's a local community college, a four-year institution, a vocational school, or others, to build that curriculum so the employer knows exactly what competencies the apprentice will learn and the apprentice knows that as well, which helps with that retention and that loyalty to that organization. And then our staff also help those employers access funding. And as you mentioned, registered apprenticeship allows one of the many benefits is the access to funding. And then our office, in addition to that funding and supportive services at the state and local level for equipment and transportation, childcare, and other supportive services costs, our office also has invested over $1 billion over the past 8 years in grants and contracts to also spur the expansion of registered apprenticeship. And after employers or organizations launch those apprenticeship programs, our staff work with the workforce system to help them, as you mentioned, build that pipeline of talent and diversify their workforce. We're really big on diversification. In fact, we see registered apprenticeship as a strong diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. We have partners at the Women's Bureau, several youth services. We partner with educators, veterans. So if employers are interested in hiring veterans, more women, youth, people of color, people with disabilities, we have those connections to help them do that. And that's what we're here to do.
And I can even say when we were recruiting at the former company I was with, we had to, you had to interview everybody, right? There were certain criteria you had to meet to make sure that you were fulfilling those diversity requirements. And I personally liked that because I'm like, you had to screen everybody the same exact way to ensure equity. Like, imagine if we did this for every job, like, wouldn't this be perfect? But you had to devise what your rating scale was going to be. And everybody had to be asked the same questions on the same rating scale. And it was straightforward in that way, but it was also fair for everybody that was involved.
Exactly. Registered apprenticeship includes, requirements to ensure that the apprentices reflect the communities in which they operate in, which helps employers stay competitive, to have the best ideas, the best and the brightest. And our staff are here. We have universal outreach tools and other tools to help you reach untapped talent that you may not have thought about or had access to in the past, to make sure that, as you mentioned, they have an opportunity to work for your organization and to learn along with others. So we definitely see this as a value for the community as a whole, and for the employer.
One of the other things I think right now is really important in terms of how the apprenticeship can be helpful, and I'll look at the job seeker side of it, right? There are a lot of job seekers right now, regardless of what generation they're in, but I think a lot of times they're, potentially Gen X or even baby boomers, even some of those millennials, they're starting to switch careers and make career pivots. And that's where the apprenticeship program can be really effective for them, because the idea of the apprenticeship program is you're coming into something that you have no experience in or very little experience in, and you're learning a new skill and you're getting that on the job experience plus the educational tools that you need to get there. And so for people like teachers or any other profession where they're switching careers. I think it's great that job seekers can now have the apprenticeship program or have always had, but now may know that they can go and look on the apprenticeship.gov website for opportunities as they're pivoting.
This is a pivotal moment in our country. I think with the pandemic, a lot of people unfortunately lost jobs, and then it also helped, and kind of forced people to really think about their careers and those career paths. And we've noticed that that people are really looking for something new, but unfortunately, they don't have the funds to go to school and not work to take care of their families. And so the beauty of registered apprenticeship is that it does allow you to earn and learn at the same time. As a mom, I went through that myself. I started young and I wanted to go into one career path, but I had to go to school. And so unfortunately for a lot of parents, they get stuck into jobs that they might not have wanted to go into because they needed to make an income and a living for their children. And so I think that's why I fell in love with registered apprenticeship. I'm passionate about it, and why others are too, because it gives people an opportunity to, as I mentioned, earn and learn at the same time for those career paths. And so I think my message to anyone out there who thinks, I'm interested in learning cybersecurity, but I don't have the funds to go to school, or I don't know how to code, or I don't know anything about it. Registered apprenticeship is an opportunity to get your foot in the door. There are companies out there, including big ones and small ones, who are paying people to teach them how to learn in those career fields. We see people's lives change all of the time. I met someone at Microsoft who was a veteran, but unfortunately could not find a job after serving for our country. Ended up homeless at one time, and is now a software engineer at Microsoft with no previous experience, because he did an apprenticeship where they taught him, they paid him, and they helped him succeed. And so I am happy that you are putting this together to really get the word out there that there is hope and there is a way and a pathway to getting into those jobs that you have always wanted to get into.
I mean, I was even looking to show somebody, and if you go to apprenticeship.gov, there's a section for career seekers, and you can actually go to the database and you can look, and you can just look by a state and see what's available. You can look by city and state, but you couldn't even imagine the amount of companies and roles that are doing these apprenticeship programs. So I was very intrigued, and I'm glad to see that more people are doing it. But I think the other part that's really important to mention about the apprenticeship program that I think is also a plus for both individuals, but there has to be a mentor assigned to each apprentice. And that mentor is really at the criteria of the company, right? They don't have to be a direct, supervisor, right? There's not certain criteria, but they do have to meet regularly. And I have seen that both the mentor and the mentee benefit extremely greatly from that relationship. Why do you think that it's important that they have sort of one mentor that they have throughout their program?
There are so many reasons that I think mentorship is key. One, it's a great succession plan, because the mentor is typically someone who's seasoned and who knows that job. And so it is key that we share that information. We've all seen that with the advances in technology, things are constantly changing. And so I think with any organization, you need to have more than one person that has a unique skill set. And so mentorship, for one, I think is key. It's because it allows others to, people to kind of share that knowledge and pass things on and cross train. But two, it's important for the employees, because it allows them to have someone to answer questions for them, when they have them. I think we've all probably had that first job or two where we kind of had to sink or swim. You just jump right in. You don't really have anyone to really guide you. And because of that, you make mistakes. And sometimes the morality is low, the morale is low. And so I think it's important that to help build morale, to help build that sense of community, and to help get that culture within that organization, it is so important to have a mentor who can make sure that you understand what you're doing, reduce any mistakes, and really succeed in that organization. I think when people feel that they are being set up for success, they tend to stay and enjoy the job and the work that they're doing even more.
Couldn't agree with you more. One of the things I also wanted to bring attention to in terms of the apprenticeship program is, the way that it's structured is that there's the company gets to pick how much education. So maybe it's 220 hours, and then maybe there's 4,000 hours of on-the-job training, right? Those are just estimates, but they can pick their requirements. But that being said, that apprentice is getting pay bumps during that entire process, where maybe at 1,000 hours, they're getting $1, 50 cents, whatever the company designates. And I think that that's important because it's showing what we should be doing as organizations anyway, which is as our skills improve, right, we should be getting those pay rates that are reflective of those improved skills. So I love that it happens, but I also know that has sometimes been challenging for those internal employees who aren't getting those similar type of pay bumps, and a little bit frustrating for them.
I agree. I think when people ask why are the retention rates in registered apprenticeship so high, I definitely think that the page increases are important. I think one of the main ways that you can recognize someone for their work is to make sure that you're giving them, that they're being compensated, and they're showing that, that you appreciate their worth and see their worth and their value. And so I think that it is a shame that for a lot of employees, they don't receive pay increases. Which is why we intentionally include that in registered apprenticeship. We work with the employer from day one. And again, the apprentice knows that too. So they not only learn what competencies they'll learn throughout their registered apprenticeship program, but they'll know what their pay increases will be, which is so important.
Yeah, it is absolutely important. And I know that was a good thing, that they all liked that they knew everything in advance. So I think that that's a good part of the program. The other thing that I want to talk about is when you're building that apprenticeship program, or when we are looking at it as a whole, right? I found that it was really great because Apprenticeship USA or apprenticeship.gov, however we're going to refer to them, they actually do an apprenticeship week in November. And that week is supposed to be designed for you to, continue to recognize your apprentice and find ways to engage them and what they're doing, and really shine a light on that experience internally within your organization. And I know as it's been progressing, both at a local level, a state level, and a federal level, Apprenticeship USA has been providing ideas of how you can start to, create a recognition program during that particular week. And so I think that it's great that they're trying to build this community to say, hey, look at what's happening in our org. Like, let's honor this group of people, this cohort that's going through this learning and hands-on experience.
I'm so glad that you mentioned National Apprenticeship Week. That is probably the best week that we could have in the Office of Apprenticeship. It's a nationwide celebration of registered apprenticeship. It's an opportunity for employers to really highlight their programs. A lot of employers open their doors and allow the community to come in, schools to come in to see what a day in the life of an apprentice is like. A lot of employers will have business roundtables to really talk about the industry needs, and with the apprentice panels, hear from the apprentices and allow other employers to see the value that apprentices bring to their organization. They have webinars and podcasts and graduations, and it's an exciting week. Last year, we had the most events across the country that we've ever had. There were over 1,300 registered apprenticeship related events across the country. Almost 400 proclamations across the country. This year, National Apprenticeship Week is taking place November 13th through the 19th. So we are so excited. We have a lot of information on apprenticeship.gov. For anyone who wants to come, it's a great opportunity for current registered apprenticeship stakeholders, partners, and sponsors to highlight their programs, but it's also a great way to learn more about registered apprenticeship. They usually have public events, so the public can come learn more about registered apprenticeship. And we have a great map on our website that'll show you how to find events in your area. You can look at it by industry or a topic area focused on specific populations. But it's a great map, and I definitely recommend and encourage people to check it out.
we were not as involved as we wanted to be. And then as the years continued, we started getting more and more involved. And so it was great that they started putting out like, here's some ideas that you could do. So it was wonderful. The other thing that I think is important to note is I always said it's great if you have multiple cohorts, of apprentices. So, you can start off with one to sort of get the idea of what this feels like and how much work it's going to be and what that is. But then when you've built one, it sort of becomes second nature to start implementing more and more and more. And I think the value there is that not only can they have a mentor, but they can work, those new apprentice cohorts can work with the other apprentice cohorts, whether they've graduated, whether they're still in the program, to say, here's what we've learned, or here's how we can make the program better, or whatever. And I feel like having multiple really also shows that there's growth paths that employees can go to. So if I'm a registered apprentice and I start off as a customer service rep, I may get through that apprenticeship program and then say, kind of like sales and business development. And then I could, if there's a path available, I could then go to do an apprenticeship program, through the business development path. So it's exciting that there's opportunities like that if you can build that succinctly in your organization.
I agree completely. We hear so many stories about these apprentice peer-to-peer sessions. And what we're seeing now is a lot of apprentices are starting them on their own and forming them on their own. Some are even going to social media to really create that network and that community. So we think that's great. And it is exciting to see the growth within an organization. As you mentioned, a lot of organizations, some, I shouldn't say a lot, some do start small with just one occupation because it typically is formed around a specific occupation and need. And then employers, like we had one, it was a healthcare coder. Or something like that, or biotechnology, something in biotechnology. And they created a program and they had it small. They just hired 5 or 6 apprentices for the first cohort. But then they saw that it was successful, and then they had another cohort, and then they hired 25 to 50 apprentices. By the next year, they were adding multiple occupations. Because it worked for that occupation, they moved to another occupation. One thing that we're starting to see now is that a lot of companies, no matter what industry they're in, whether it's construction, healthcare, hospitality, finance, a lot of them are creating cybersecurity apprenticeship programs because cybersecurity, like IT, cuts across all industries. And there's a critical need for that right now. So we are starting to see that expansion within organizations, which does facilitate kind of those networks with apprentices.
The other thing that I will say too is that you talked about how you can, you can have those multiple occupations, right? But then it also helps when you're transitioning. What I will say is if you're an employee or an apprentice who is in the program and say for whatever reason you get laid off or you decide to leave the organization, you can go to another employer who has that registered apprenticeship program and just continue on with your program and still get your certificate. If they have one built. Now, there may be pieces that don't always fit exactly the right way because they may have other classes that you have to take or something like that. But it's nice that because apprenticeship, USA or apprenticeship.gov regulates all of this, there's an ability for you to still finish the program under a different company or organization.
Yes, thank you. I agree. And what we are starting to see, in other countries, especially in Europe, registered apprenticeship is really embedded in the culture. But what we are starting to see here in the US is more employers really looking for that registered apprenticeship credential, similar to how they would look for a college degree. And so the beauty of it is that we have this a job finder on apprenticeship.gov, where anyone, career seekers, parents, teachers, anyone can look for apprenticeship opportunities or jobs online in their area by industry. And what we're seeing is that a lot of employers, whereas they used to look for a high school diploma or a college degree, are also either adding or just putting, we are looking for someone with registered apprenticeship experience or a registered apprenticeship credential. So that is really exciting to see. We're starting to see that more and more. And as you mentioned, if someone does not complete a registered apprenticeship program, or completes a pre-apprenticeship program, a lot of times employers will use that experience and that time and those competencies and add them into that program so they don't have to start from the beginning and can continue on. But we are also seeing a lot of employers create programs together. A lot of employers, the Registered Apprenticeship is not only bringing industry and education together, but it's bringing industry together in unique ways that we really haven't seen before, where they're creating a standard for what the critical needs are for a certain occupation. Semiconductors are really big right now. They're working together to say, what are those critical needs that we need right now? Let's create a program together and work together to make sure that all of our needs are met. And so our staff are happy to support them in that way as well.
That's fantastic. It's almost like an employee share, but they're not necessarily sharing the employees, but they're sharing sort of the cost of that program and pushing that out, because there is some cost to the employer, but significantly decreased because of what the apprenticeship program can provide. But I do think that, it's great that other companies, competitors even, are saying, hey, let's just do this together. And rather than fight for the talent, we'll just get, talent from the other organizations that maybe, or other companies where other people now want to have a new skill set.
They work together to kind of create that national standard and agree upon that standard. And then we have contractors and support people and technical assistance providers who can then help them implement it within their organizations. And again, we have funding that we can use. There's incentive funding to really help offset those costs of starting a new program within the organization. And we provide other technical assistance and support as well to help connect them to partners in their area. So, but I agree, it's nice to see employers and even competitors working together to really meet those critical needs.
And I know you mentioned the pre-apprenticeship program. So if I understand that right, because we did not have one, but if I understand that correctly, that's for high school age students. Is that correct?
So it can be for some. Interestingly, pre-apprenticeships can range, depending on the industry and occupation, they can range from high school students to adults. It really depends on the needs of the employer. So we have some employers who, like in megatronics, they might need a certain type of engineer, but before they can start that registered apprenticeship, or even in construction, they need to make sure that those apprentices have some basic skills to then feed into that program. So we do have some in high school, but we do have some for adults. And that's the great thing about registered apprenticeship. It is customizable really to meet the needs of that employer and their industry and occupation.
Yeah, I knew that there was an opportunity for a pre-apprenticeship, and I don't think that that's talked about enough as well. But there's sort of like, you can build this baseline of like, even if we're not sure we want to go this route, or we can't deploy a whole large apprenticeship program, what can we deploy so we're starting to get closer to those, to that area. So that is great that there is that available. One of the things I will say that I would love to see more of is sort of those post-apprenticeship stories, right? How are companies handling that? Because I know internally, what we found when I was working for that employer in New Hampshire was the apprentices were done, and then I think they sort of felt like we're not learning. We don't feel like we're getting the education component, or we don't feel like we're getting that hands-on like learning component. And it was always for us looking at how can we continue to make them feel like they're learning all the time, even though they just don't feel it, because in the apprenticeship, it's very straightforward. And so I would love to hear more about how we can, gather sort of those post-apprentice communities and how they're working together, or hear their stories of where they are now. That would be fantastic.
Well, it's great that you mentioned that, because we also want to hear those stories. We do have a new success story repository on our website on apprenticeship.gov, where we feature all of these success stories, which is exciting to kind of hear their journey throughout their apprenticeship program and where they are afterwards. But we wanted to take it a step further to really hear from the apprentice themselves and really give them a platform to share their stories, promote registered apprenticeship, and even develop ideas for ways that we can continue to bring awareness to registered apprenticeship, but as you mentioned, to make sure apprentices are still feeling like they're learning or have the support they need. So we are in the process of looking and identifying an initiative to do that, to create a larger national network of apprentices, those currently in a program and apprentice graduates, to give them that platform. So please stay on the lookout for an announcement soon.
That's great. And it also, I think, challenged us as an employer to say, how can we make our internal programs better, right? I mean, I think that that was really a good thing that came from that. And even building like SMEs and how we're going to train these individuals. And I know one of the things that I think all of both the apprentices and the workforce really enjoyed is part of our program was they had to do, we were in a manufacturing environment, they had to do a sort of a continuous improvement effort. And they had to not only identify and work with the internal team to determine what they wanted to fix or resolve, and then they actually had to do the project and then present it to a group of their mentors and the CEO and HR, right? And so it was really great because even if they were never going to have to present in their role, they got those presentation skills and they actually got to make an impact in something that was part of the organization. So they got to feel like they contributed to something, an overall process that would change the way things were happening.
That is great. And we love hearing stories like that. And I think that's another reason why we want to create an initiative like this, so that apprentices can share their experiences and employers can hear best practices like that and learn firsthand and hear firsthand how, different initiatives or opportunities like that really did help benefit the apprentice and the employer, at the same time. So thank you for sharing that, and looking forward to hearing more and really spreading the word about other ways that employers can, give those apprentices a professional development experience and opportunity outside of their apprenticeship program.
And so for an employer who is looking to maybe make this change, right? I know that they could probably, go on apprenticeship.gov, but they probably also could call their local apprenticeship.gov office and get some more information about, how to go about that process, who the partnering community colleges are, right? All those other features. And so would that be step one, or do you think that there's something else they can do even before they make that phone call to start preparing themselves for implementing an apprenticeship program?
Great question. So yes, I think it's the best thing is to really think about what those critical needs are. So if there's a particular occupation that they're in need of, whether it's nursing, a cybersecurity tech, an engineering technician, an engineer, if it's a specific occupation that they're in need of, I think it's important for them to really think through what those critical workforce needs are, so that when they reach out to our staff and our teams, we can be prepared to help them. Apprenticeship.gov is, I think, basically the one-stop shop for all things apprenticeship, and I would definitely recommend that they go there. There is a place where they can find apprenticeship representatives in their state. And so they can get access to all of their contact information. On the employer page, there's also a button at the top, an interest in apprenticeship button, and that's kind of like a quick questionnaire that just asks kind of where they're located, what their needs are. And if they fill that out, our system and our referral process will automatically match them to the right person to meet their needs, whether it's in their industry or in their local area. So there's kind of two ways that either they can reach out directly to their apprenticeship representative, or they can fill out the questionnaire and have an apprenticeship representative reach out to them, whichever they prefer. But we stand ready to work with them and answer any questions they may have. And they can also email us at apprenticeship@dol.gov.
That's fantastic. One of the things I know that was scary, I'll say, or maybe dissuaded people from building an apprenticeship program was not the program itself, right? I think everybody sees their return on investment, but for smaller organizations who may only have an HR department of 1 or 2, or even, no HR department, right? It is work to, deploy the program and maintain the program. Now, of course, apprenticeship.gov helps you along the way. Your college partner or your education partner helps you along the way. But there are things like helping to build the curriculum and actually going through the recruitment process, identifying the occupation that you have to do on your own, plus the milestones and the graduations and the rapid system and all of that. So I think that, some of that apprehension maybe comes from, hey, we don't have the time for this, right? And so if somebody sort of has that mindset of we don't have the time for this, do you then build sort of like a partner program of people that you can refer them to who do have the time to help them implement these?
Yes, understanding the needs, especially for small businesses, that over $1 billion that I mentioned that we've invested in the past 8 years was to partners at the state, regional, and local level who can help them, who can do just that, who can either connect them to other people, those group programs who've already really kind of laid out the standards and kind of created a whole registered apprenticeship program in a box for them, that can give it to them and say, we've already figured out what the needs are, what the curriculum would look like, and here is that blueprint, which we call standards, and we can help you implement this within your organization. We have staff here who can help you. We have funding to support the program and that implementation, and we can help spread the word, amplify your program, and help recruit your program, help you with any recruitment needs that you might have to build that pipeline into your program. And so our staff are here, but we also have grantees and partners all across the country who are paid by us to help them for free with all those needs. So I hope that they do know that if time or capacity is an issue, we have grantees and representatives and contractors across the country that can help them and take that burden off of their shoulders.
Excellent. That's good to hear, because I don't want that to be the hurdle that people have to, that get in their way of using one of these programs. Because like I said, even when we were deploying it nationally, it was like, why haven't we been doing this? And particularly when you hear, manufacturing, right? There's a lot of those trades are not as populated as they once were. And so when you're operating in a lean model or, having trouble finding talent, it can be really challenging. And I think right now for a lot of people, right, they're talking about this talent shortage, but I don't see it as a talent shortage. I see it as an opportunity for us to build more of these apprenticeship programs and say, do you want to transition into a different career, into something that might be more rewarding or fulfilling or what have you? And we talked about that initially, but I just think that this is going to be the way for us to go. And every company should have at least one program. I don't care how big they are.
I agree completely. And I think, others across the department agree the same way, that it's not necessarily just a talent shortage. It's an opportunity to really make sure that employers are equipped to access the talent that they need through registered apprenticeship and kind of build that workforce that they need. And so that's what our staff are here for, and we're ready to help. And again, I appreciate, you pulling this together so we can help spread the word. I really do.
And I do love that with the apprenticeship program, it's not like those entry level roles that you see that's 3 to 5 years of experience. It's a true, like, you do not have to have any experience. You could have worked in retail. You could have worked wherever, right? And you're coming in with zero experience in that industry. But by the time your apprenticeship program is over, you probably now have 2 years, 3 years, 4 years of actual experience that can be beneficial not only for you, but your organization, which I think is crucial.
I agree completely. I think what a lot of people see, especially those coming out of college, is that employers often are asking for at least 1 or 2 years of experience. And so sometimes you'll see that people kind of get stuck because they have this college degree or some other certificate, and they say, okay, I want to get a job, or maybe they're just coming out of high school and I want to get a job, but employers need 1 or 2 years of experience, and so it's hard. And so registered apprenticeship is great because it gives them that experience, an opportunity to learn a new skill without previous experience, and they can get paid to do it. It almost sounds too good to be true for a lot of people oftentimes, but it is exciting. And so I agree with you. It is important, and we will just want to make sure that more people are aware of that.
And I think one of the things I will note, you don't have to comment on it, but I will note it for those people listening, is that an apprentice is a full-time employee of your organization. It's not like when you have a contractor or a temp. They are a full-time employee that is eligible for benefits. They're eligible for everything within your organization that any other employee is eligible for. They're just going through this program specifically.
Exactly.
And then, so is there anything else that you'd like to share about the program? Anything that you want to tell that you haven't already shared with everybody?
Great question. I think the only thing is if anyone is new to it, I think it's, really to just go to the website and check it out. In addition to all of those grantees and contractors that I mentioned, we have those ambassadors, over 200 apprenticeship ambassadors. We have those listed on our website who are also champions and advocates for registered apprenticeship. Youth apprenticeship is really popular right now. A lot of employers are trying to figure out how to increase opportunities for youth. High school apprenticeship. We really do see it as a way to build those platforms, especially for students who don't know what they want to do when they graduate from high school, or don't necessarily want to go to college, or can't afford it. Registered apprenticeship, we don't really see it as an either or to college, and that for a lot of people, it's a pathway to college, free of charge. A lot of employers are paying people not only to work and learn at the same time, but are paying for their college degrees and college experience. So I think that is something that else that I'd want to share with people, is to really try it out, explore the website. As Lisa mentioned, there are so many case studies, success stories, and videos on the website. So I really just encourage people to check it out and to reach out to us if you have any questions at all.
And normally I would say to people, I'd say to you, how do people find you? But I'd rather them find apprenticeship.gov, because you probably are being, bombarded with emails all the time, and you're probably not even the one that's going to be able to help them deploy the program. So rather than reaching out to Cierra, who is on LinkedIn, and you can find her if you really, really wanted to, visit apprenticeship.gov, and one of the representatives can certainly help. The way I end every podcast is going to my favorite Maya Angelou quote. She is my favorite poet of all time. And she has a quote that says, "I've learned that people will forget what you did, people will forget what you said, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Can you share a time where that was true for you?
The time that I remember the most was when I had an opportunity, because of my job at the Department of Labor, and there are a lot of federal apprenticeships too. So if anyone is interested in a job with the federal government, there are apprenticeship opportunities on USA Jobs as well. A lot of people don't know that. And I'm sure that will be increasing soon because there's a lot of interest and demand for it. But I had an opportunity to meet Michelle Obama. And I was so excited to meet her. I thought of everything I was going to say, and I went up to her, and I couldn't remember what I was going to say. But she looked at me in my eyes, held my hand, and said, "How are you doing?" And I will never forget that, because I felt immediately like she truly cared about me, wanted to know how I was doing. I think I was trying to ask her a million questions, but she was checking on me and made me feel like she wanted to know how I was doing. And with her being the first lady at the time, I just couldn't imagine. It was just heartwarming for her to really want to ask me how I was doing. And I told her, I said, I'm a mom, I'm working, I'm busy. And how did you do it as a mom? And she shared, tips for how she managed to be the first lady and have the whole weight of the world on her shoulders and still be a great mom. And she said, I just take it minute by minute, day by day. And it was just the best advice for me. But again, she made me feel like she truly cared. Like there was mass chaos around us and thousands of people, but in that moment, her eyes were on me, and she was just focused on me and how she could help me. And so I remember that and try to be as present as possible with people and my kids as present as possible to make sure that they know that and feel heard at all times.
That's such an incredible story, Sarah. I mean, the fact that you had the first lady right there, and I can imagine, like, what we get starstruck, right? And we're all like, I had all these questions and I should have written them down and I should have brought a notebook, but it ended up turning into something you probably didn't even expect because you may not have asked her, how do you do it? But she was really intentional about wanting to get to know you and caring about you. And that's just so incredible. And I wish more people had those types of experiences, not just with celebrities, but in general in their lives, of like a feeling that just overwhelmed them and consumed them in such a positive way and made them feel valued and important, like you had. So that's fantastic.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you being here so much. I cannot wait to tell the world about apprenticeship.gov. And hopefully many people will start signing up rapidly. But I'm so excited to get the word out and glad that you took the time to speak with me today. It was very much appreciated. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for taking the time to spread the word on so many critical and important issues like registered apprenticeship. Really a pleasure to meet with you. Thank you for your passion and interest in registered apprenticeship. You are serving as an ambassador and champion for us. And I just want to let you know that it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you so much for the work you've done to create a registered apprenticeship program on your own and to really promote it. It really is appreciated.
Well, thank you. And to all my listeners out there, hope you all have a great day and that you're doing well. And as always, lead with empathy, act with kindness. Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to All People Podcast. If you enjoyed our show, I'd love for you to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. The work doesn't end here. If you want to keep the conversation going, find me on LinkedIn or Facebook, or visit my website, apeoplepartnerllc.com. Lead with empathy and act with kindness. Have a great day.